What if the strangest, smartest sci-fi stories didn't come from Hollywood at all? What if the real masterpieces were born in the smoky studios and surreal minds of France? While America built rockets, France built ideas, stories that bent time, emotion, and reason. These aren't your everyday space adventures. They're visual poems, philosophical puzzles, and fever dreams that still feel ahead of their time. Ready to discover the films that redefine science fiction without anyone noticing? Let's begin. Number 10. The Man Who Sleeps, Un Homme qui Dort, 1974. What if you simply stopped caring? Not in rebellion, not in despair, just stopped. That's the eerie question The Man Who Sleeps dares to ask, and it does so with hypnotic stillness. Directed by Georges Perec and Bernard Caissan, this French sci-fi parable blurs the line between dream philosophy and quiet apocalypse. The film follows a young student in Paris who one morning decides to disconnect from society, ambition, and emotion. He stops answering calls, stops showing up to classes, stops reacting to life itself. No tragedy drives him. No trauma explains him. He simply drifts away from the world, choosing silence over participation. And in doing so, he becomes both invisible and strangely free. What makes The Man Who Sleeps feel like science fiction isn't technology, it's detachment. The city becomes an alien landscape. Familiar streets turn unreal, flooded with indifference. The narrator's voice, calm and relentless, guides us through his surrender. It's not about spaceships or robots. It's about the slow disappearance of the human spirit in a world that no longer feels alive. Shot in stark black and white, the visuals turn Paris into something ghostly, mechanical, almost dystopian. You start to see how routine can become its own prison, how modern life quietly erases individuality. It's not a film you watch as much as one you sink into. Perec, who was also a novelist, wrote the film's haunting voiceover as a second-person narration. You do this, you walk there, you no longer care. It's mesmerizing, unsettling, and deeply poetic. Critics have called it existential science fiction without the science. And that's exactly what it feels like, a future where emotion itself has gone extinct. The Man Who Sleeps is slow, meditative, and unforgettable. It's not about escaping the world. It's about watching what happens when the world escapes you. Number 9. Alphaville, 1965. A city without emotion. A detective who doesn't belong. A machine that forbids poetry. That's Alphaville, Jean-Luc Godard's cold and hypnotic masterpiece, a film that turns the city of Paris into a futuristic nightmare without using a single special effect. The story follows Lemmy Caution, a trench-coated secret agent wandering through a city ruled by logic and stripped of feeling. Society is controlled by a supercomputer named Alpha 60, whose robotic voice dictates every rule. Love is outlawed, emotion is weakness, and imagination is a crime. It's a place where logic has won and humanity has lost. But instead of building fake cities or using futuristic props, Godard simply filmed in real modern buildings, neon-lit streets, and glass hotels. The result is chilling because it feels real. The future isn't in outer space, it's right here in the sterile glow of technology and control. Alpha 60's monotone voice echoes through the film like an oracle of reason gone mad. The people obey. The machine questions. Only Lemmy dares to resist, not with violence, but with poetry. His rebellion isn't through guns, it's through words, through love. That's the genius of Alphaville. Beneath the strange noir dialogue and dim corridors lies a profound question. What happens when machines teach us to stop feeling? Decades later, its fingerprints appear in Blade Runner: The Matrix, and every dystopian story where emotion fights logic. Alphaville didn't predict the future, it diagnosed it early. It showed us that the scariest dystopia isn't full of aliens or monsters. It's a world that looks exactly like ours, only colder. Number 8. Fantastic Planet, La Planète Sauvage, 1973. Imagine a world where humans are pets, and their owners are calm, blue-skinned giants who meditate instead of talk. That's Fantastic Planet, René Laloux's psychedelic animated masterpiece, unlike anything you've ever seen. Set on the distant planet Egam, the film follows tiny humans, called Oms, enslaved by their towering alien overlords, the Drags. The drags treat them as pests or playthings, unaware that the Oms are developing intelligence and rebellion. The result is both hypnotic and horrifying. The animation is hand-drawn surreal and endlessly strange. Landscapes twist like dreams. The creatures seem pulled from the corners of your imagination alive, but not human. There's no realism here, only pure vision. The story works as both an allegory and a warning. It speaks about control freedom and the fragile balance between nature and dominance. Leloux's film was based on a novel by Stephen Wool, but it became something bigger, an experience that transcended plot. With its eerie music and slow rhythm, Fantastic Planet feels like a guided tour through another consciousness. You don't watch it, you drift through it. When it premiered at Cannes, it won the Special Jury Prize and later became a cult favorite worldwide. Musicians, animators, and filmmakers still cite it as an influence. Hollywood had shiny spaceships and laser fights. France gave us poetry and philosophy disguised as animation. What's most haunting is how familiar it feels today. A society that keeps others small to maintain control. A people awakening from silence. Fantastic Planet may take place on another world, but it's really about ours, and that's why it never fades. Number 7. Time Masters, Les Maîtres du Temps, 1982. A boy trapped on an alien planet. Group of adventurers racing across galaxies to save him. It sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon, but Time Masters is something entirely different. It's a French animated epic that blends wonder, melancholy, and mystery in a way few films ever have. Directed by René Laloux and designed by Mobius, the legendary artist whose work inspired Alien and Blade Runner, this film looks like no other. Each frame feels hand-carved from imagination. The skies shimmer in impossible colors. The creatures are delicate and strange, both beautiful and unsettling. The story follows Piel, a young boy stranded after his father's death, as a spaceship crew tries to rescue him. But time itself begins to warp. The hero's choices ripple backward and forward, changing events they can't yet see. What starts as a rescue mission becomes an exploration of destiny, love, and the limits of understanding. Unlike Hollywood's space adventures, Time Masters doesn't race toward explosions, it drifts through emotions. The tone is poetic, mournful, full of quiet awe. You can feel the influence of Mobius in every line, the balance between loneliness and beauty. Though it wasn't a box office hit, Time Masters gained cult status for its visual depth and haunting score. It's often called the French Star Wars, but that's not quite right. It's gentler, sadder, and far more introspective. Where America aimed for the stars, Time Masters aimed for the soul. And if you watch it today, it still feels like finding a forgotten dream floating somewhere in space. Number 6. The Last Battle, Le Dernier Combat, 1983. In a world where no one can speak, silence becomes the loudest sound of all. Luc Besson's first feature. The Last Battle paints a future where civilization has collapsed so completely that language itself has vanished. No words, no explanations, only survival. Filmed entirely in stark black and white, the story follows a man navigating a desolate city. He builds, scavenges, and fights for scraps of life in an empty landscape of metal and dust. Occasionally, he encounters others, some friendly, some violent, but no one speaks. Every sound matters. Every gesture becomes communication. Besson shot the movie on a tiny budget, using real ruins and industrial spaces. The lack of dialogue wasn't just artistic, it was necessity. Yet it turned into the film's greatest strength. Without words, you start to watch differently. You feel the rhythm of existence stripped bare. What makes The Last Battle extraordinary isn't just its silence, it's its humanity. Amid all the grayness, you glimpse moments of humor, kindness, and hope. It's proof that even at the end of the world, people still reach for connection. Critics were stunned when it premiered. The film won multiple awards and instantly marked Besson as a visionary. It also introduced Jean Reno to audiences, launching a partnership that would define French cinema for decades. While American films of the 80s gave us apocalypses filled with explosions and heroes. The Last Battle gave us something quieter, but far more chilling. Emptiness. A world where words no longer exist, and yet the will to communicate remains. Sometimes, silence can tell you more about humanity than all the dialogue in the world. Number 5. Kandahar Light Years, 1987. At first glance, Gandhar looks like paradise. The skies shimmer in soft pastels. The rivers glow. The people live in harmony with nature, free from hunger, pain, or war. But in classic French sci-fi fashion, perfection doesn't stay perfect for long, because when peace lasts too long, something always stirs beneath the surface. Directed by René Laloux. Gandhar is a haunting animated odyssey based on Jean-Pierre Andrevin's novel. The story begins with a mystery, beautiful, peaceful citizens suddenly attacked by strange metallic creatures that turn living beings into stone. Their leader, Ambisextra, sends a warrior named Sylvain to investigate, leading him into a dark and surreal journey through his own civilization's hidden flaws. The twist is quietly devastating. The mechanical attackers aren't invaders at all. They're Gandhar's own descendants evolved far into the future, sent back in time to destroy their creators before they can bring ruin to the universe. It's a time loop tragedy disguised as a fantasy adventure. What sets Gandhar apart is its tone, calm, yet eerie, dreamlike, yet full of dread. Laloux's visual world is stunning. Landscapes breathe, creatures glide like living sculptures, and everything feels both natural and alien. Every frame seems painted from a fever dream. The film was released in the US as Light Years, featuring voices from Glenn Close and Christopher Plummer, but the French version hits harder. It's slower, quieter, and infinitely stranger. It's not just a story about time travel. It's a meditation on arrogance, on how even utopias can plant the seeds of their own downfall. While Hollywood's visions of the future often explode with noise and spectacle, Gandhar whispers its warning. The perfection once achieved has nowhere left to go, but down. Watching it feels like watching paradise quietly dissolve and realizing you've been part of the dream all along. Number 4. Eden Log, 2007. If most sci-fi movies take you up to the stars, Eden Log drags you straight down into the earth and never lets you breathe easy again. This is one of those films that doesn't show the future as a gleaming city, but as a cold, damp maze built by human ambition and greed. Directed by Frank Vestiaire, Eden Log opens with a man waking in total darkness, covered in mud, his memory erased. He crawls through a labyrinth of decaying tunnels, lit by flickering neon. The deeper he goes, the more the horror unfolds. He's trapped in an underground industrial system powered by human labor and human bodies. The film's design is claustrophobic genius. The camera stays close, the light is dim, and the air feels thick. You can almost smell the machinery and hear the echoes of forgotten screams. Every wall seems to breathe. Every shadow hides something broken. It's not a film you simply watch, you endure it. Vestiaille's direction blends horror and science fiction with a painter's precision. The pacing is slow, but relentless, pulling you further into its grim world until escape feels impossible. What's most chilling is that Eden Log doesn't rely on gore or action. It relies on atmosphere, on the feeling that humanity's progress has literally buried itself alive. Critics were divided when it premiered, but those who connected with it called it one of the boldest visions in modern European sci-fi. Its use of minimal dialogue and heavy symbolism gives it an almost mythic feel, like a modern Dante descending into a mechanical hell. If you're tired of shiny space operas, Eden Log is your antidote. It's dirty, dark, and unforgettable. A reminder that the future doesn't always look up, it can also swallow us whole. Number 3. Renaissance, 2006. What if Blade Runner had been drawn in ink instead of filmed in neon? That's Renaissance, a bold French animated noir that turns Paris into a black and white fever dream. Directed by Christian Volkmann, this film reimagines the city as a towering labyrinth of glass, steel, and secrets. The story follows Barthélemy Carras, a detective hired to find a kidnapped scientist whose research could change the human lifespan forever. The deeper he digs, the darker it gets, a city owned by powerful corporation surveillance cameras on every corner, and a mystery that stretches far beyond one missing person. But the real star here isn't the plot, it's the look, shot entirely in motion capture animation. Renaissance is a stark explosion of contrast. Every scene is drenched in shadows and light, with no gray in between. Faces appear like sculptures, carved from darkness, and the city itself feels alive, pulsing with danger. It's the most graphic novel-looking movie ever made, and that's not an accident. It's art in motion. Daniel Craig voices Karras in the English version, lending that cold intensity he does best, but the French track hits differently, more textured, more lived in. The sound design hums with electronic menace, and the score feels like machinery breathing. While some viewers found it overwhelming, others saw genius. Renaissance is less about storytelling and more about immersion, an experiment in how far you can push animation without losing soul. And it worked. It won awards for innovation, and still stands as one of the most visually daring films of its era. In a decade obsessed with realism, France gave us abstraction. Where Hollywood's cities glow with color, Renaissance stripped it all away, proving that sometimes removing color reveals more truth than adding it ever could. Number 2. Immortal ad vitam, 2004. Imagine ancient Egyptian gods walking the streets of a futuristic Paris. Not in mythology, not in fantasy, but in sleek CGI reality. That's Immortal, directed by Enki Bilal, and it's one of the strangest, most ambitious sci-fi films ever made. Set in the year 2095, Paris has become a hybrid of human and digital life, mutants, cyborgs, and political corruption everywhere. Into this chaos descends Horus, the falcon-headed god, who's been sentenced to death by his divine peers. He has 7 days to find a human host and continue his existence. His choice? Alcide Nicopol, a political prisoner, just freed from cryogenic suspension. What follows is a collision of myth and machine. Horus and Nicopol share a body, navigate a city filled with floating pyramids, and meet Jill, a mysterious woman who might be the key to both their fates. Bilal, a comic book artist turned director, creates a world that feels both ancient and digital, warm and artificial. The film mixes live action and early digital animation, a risky experiment for its time. And while the CGI has aged in places, its imagination hasn't. Every scene feels like stepping inside a painting from another dimension. Unlike most sci-fi films that focus on technology or rebellion, Immortal explores destiny, decay, and the strange bond between gods and mortals. It's not for everyone. It's weird, slow, and occasionally unsettling, but that's exactly what makes it unforgettable. Bilal's vision predicted the hybrid future we live in now, where reality and simulation blur and myths don't die, they evolve. Immortal may not have conquered the box office, but it achieved something far rarer. It made mythology feel futuristic. Number 1. The City of Lost Children, La Cité des Enfants Perdus, 1995. What if dreams could be stolen? What if someone built a machine to harvest them? That's the eerie premise of The City of Lost Children, directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet and Marc Caro, a film that feels like it escaped from another reality. The story centers on Crank, a scientist who cannot dream. Desperate, he kidnaps children to steal theirs, hoping to cure his sleepless agony. But dreams, like memories, aren't easily contained. As Crank's experiments spiral out of control, a strongman named One, played by Ron Perlman, sets out to rescue one of the kidnapped children, leading him deep into a city built on nightmares. Visually, this film is a gothic circus. Everything feels mechanical, rusted, and dripping with atmosphere. Fog rolls through crooked alleyways. Machines hum like beasts in the dark. The color palette, bronze green and shadow, makes every frame look painted by madness. Jeunet and Caro created a world that's both enchanting and grotesque, a fairy tale turned inside out. Every character feels exaggerated, yet heartbreakingly human. The clones, the conjoined twins, the lost children, all searching for something stolen. Underneath the fantasy lies a quiet commentary on innocence and greed, on how dreams define us. Hollywood was busy building sleek, sci-fi cities in the 90s, but France gave us this, a dark fable about imagination itself being exploited. It's also packed with emotional weight. Perlman's bond with the boy he protects gives the story its heart, grounding the surreal chaos in something deeply human. The film didn't make huge profits, but its influence is everywhere from Pan's Labyrinth to Jeunet's later masterpiece, Amélie. The City of Lost Children proves that sci-fi doesn't need to predict the future to matter. Sometimes it just needs to remind us that dreams are worth protecting, no matter how dark the world becomes. French sci-fi isn't about rockets, it's about ideas. It's about worlds that look strange, but feel uncomfortably familiar. From silent apocalypses to dream-stealing scientists, these films dared to imagine what others couldn't. Which one will you watch first? Drop your answer below, hit that subscribe button, and share this list with your fellow dreamers. Because somewhere between poetry and paranoia, France reinvented the future, and it's still waiting for you to discover it.